Tonight, the deadly clashes on the ground in Lebanon. Israel's first military casualties since the start of a ground invasion against Hezbollah. And after Iran's massive missile attack, Israel's fresh vows to retaliate.
They have a right to respond, but they should respond in proportion.
Blocking the Bloc.
All those opposed to the motion will please rise.
Liberals vote against a motion from a party propping them up. Could it lead to payback?
They just want to get some more time and to keep not deciding about anything.
Rounding up suspects in the savage beating of a helpless BC teen. Plus, the lie that saved a life.
If I would have waited, I would have been dead by now.
And a rock and roll reunion triggers a surge in suspicious ticket sales.
I don't believe in everything I see.
What you need to know before you click buy.
Take me away.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The terrifying tentacles of war are expanding tonight in an anxious Middle East, waiting for Israel's response after Iran's most intense strike on the country ever. Israel's prime minister said today Israel's fight is not just with Iran, but with its web of militias, including Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel's military releasing these images today of what it says are its troops. On the same day, it revealed 8 of its soldiers were killed in ground clashes with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Meanwhile, in Gaza, another front in the war, Israeli ground and air operations killed 51 people, including women and children, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. CTV's Heather Wright starts us off with a region on edge.
Israel released video today showing its troops in southern Lebanon. What's not seen is the intense fighting with Hezbollah. Israel says 8 of its soldiers were killed in the first day and a half of its ground invasion into Lebanon. We are at the height of a difficult war against Iran, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, as his government weighs its response to Iran's missile barrage.
I think it's going to be very dramatic, and this will have an enormous effect on the Middle East in terms of the Iranian retaliation and maybe the spillover to regional war.
Iran's president says he is not seeking war, but warned today his country will respond to any Israeli retaliation. U.S. President Joe Biden says he's been in touch with Israel and G7 countries and opposes any Israeli strikes on Iran nuclear sites.
All 7 of us agree that they have a right to respond, but they should respond in proportion.
Iran fired roughly 200 missiles at Israel yesterday, using some of its most advanced weaponry. 1 death was reported, a Palestinian man who was hit by missile shrapnel in the occupied West Bank. In Gaza, Israeli airstrikes in Khan Yunis killed at least 51 people, according to Gaza's health ministry. The IDF says Hamas has embedded command centers within schools where displaced people are sheltering. Hamas has also taken responsibility for the attack in Jaffa on Tuesday. 2 gunmen opened fire on a train, killing at least 7 people. With violence escalating, Canada's Prime Minister reiterated his call for a ceasefire.
As an international community, we have to continue to do everything we can to call for peace and stability, which means calling for a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza.
G7 leaders spoke today to discuss Iran's attack and coordinate a response, including new sanctions. And while the group expressed concerns over the escalation, they insist a diplomatic solution is still possible. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. With just over a month to go until the U.S. election, a judge has unsealed new evidence against Donald Trump in his 2020 federal election interference case. U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith laid out a 165-page legal argument alleging Trump, quote, resorted to crimes to try and stay in office after his loss, launching plans to overturn results in 7 states. Smith is seeking to keep the case alive, despite a Supreme Court ruling that Trump has limited immunity for actions taken as president, arguing that his scheme was a fundamentally private one. Trump posted online calling the case unconstitutional and a witch hunt. The political drama in this country intensified today after the Liberals largely voted against a Bloc Québécois motion calling on the government's support for a bill that would increase old age security payouts, a stance that could put into peril their tenuous hold on power. CTV's Rachel Aiello walks us through the details. Rachel.
The potential for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to lose the Bloc Québécois' support went up on Wednesday, after the Liberals voted against the Separatist Party's motion seeking a royal recommendation to spend taxpayer dollars to top up benefits for seniors ages 65 to 74. The demand was one of 2 sticking points in Bloc leader Yves-François Blachette's October ultimatum to the Liberal minority. The Bloc's non-binding motion passed with support from the Conservatives, the NDP, the Greens, and a few Liberal backbenchers. Following the vote, Blanchet said while it's not too late for the Liberals to act, time is running out.
They could decide, notwithstanding the motion, to give the royal recommendation to C319. It's still possible. So let's be fair with our commitment, even if it's quite clear that it's not good news and that electoral alert is a bit higher.
With Blanchet ready to start talking to other opposition parties as soon as next week, the government still isn't ruling out finding a compromise.
I am in discussion with all parties at all times to try and make this parliament work, and that will be what I continue to do moving forward.
Though Liberal MPs today called the Bloc's pension play too expensive and said setting the precedent of approving potentially billions of new spending through a private member's bill was inappropriate. If the Liberals do lose the Bloc's backing, they will only have the NDP to turn to for support. And NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says he still intends to take every vote as it comes. Nanos' latest ballot tracking shows the Liberals and New Democrats statistically tied for the first time since 2015. And if that trend line continues, it could make toppling the government tempting. Omar?
All right, Rachel, thank you. A Canadian man who made the ultimate sacrifice of the battlefield during the First World War has been finally identified. Corporal William Benjamin Cunningham was buried as an unknown soldier in Belgium after he was killed in action during the Battle of Passchendaele in 1917, when he was just 21 years old. He was born in a Manitoba village that no longer exists. His identity was confirmed through historical research that included exhuming his grave. BC RCMP have arrested 3 minors in a disturbing swarming attack on a 13-year-old girl that was circulated online. She was beaten in front of dozens of people, as most of them stood by and did nothing. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson reports.
It's hard to watch a teen helpless and surrounded, beaten to the point of unconsciousness. Today, RCMP announced multiple arrests.
They have reviewed the video and identified 5 aggressors. Yesterday, 3 of the 5 were arrested and released on strict conditions.
Mounties believe more than 30 young people watched the attack unfold, many recording it and taunting the victim. The victim's father, whose face we're hiding to protect her identity, says the 13-year-old was lured to what she thought was a party.
I'm f***ing sickened. To record that, laugh, spit at her, throw dirt on her, then f***ing leave her for all they knew dead?
One criminologist calls it the power of group mentality that can particularly influence teens.
The reward mechanisms of kind of going along with a group, feeling whatever kind of rush or thrill is involved in those types of behaviors, as well as the mitigation of risk or perceived risk.
Police are saluting the only 2 in the crowd they say did the right thing.
Thank you. One phoned the police and 1 attempted to stop the assault. Of the 30+ people that were standing around, watching and taking video, you showed compassion and made the right decision.
The victim's father says she suffered bruised ribs and a concussion and trauma that may take much longer to heal.
This isn't just a fight that went wrong. This was an organized attack.
The victim's father is livid. The 3 people who have been arrested, all under the age of 18, have already been released with strict conditions and says he will not stop fighting for his daughter. Omar.
Horrifying images. Andrew Johnson in Vancouver. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and while deaths in Canada are dropping, rates among young women are increasing. Some provinces are making it easier to access screening, but as CTV's Adrian Gobriel reports, one woman says she was forced to lie, and it ended up saving her life.
When an Ontario doctor refused to sign off on a mammogram for 38-year-old Sidra Lone, the mother of 4 says she was left with no choice but to lie.
She asked me, do you have a family history? And I just lied to her, said, I do. My 2 aunts have breast cancer.
That lie finally led to a mammogram and a shocking diagnosis this past February.
It's the aggressive kind of breast cancer. And when my oncologist heard my story, she said to me, you saved your own life, you know that?
Next week, Ontario will be joining BC, Saskatchewan, and Atlantic Canada in granting women as young as 40 a mammogram if they request one. In Alberta and Manitoba, the age is 45. Quebec is currently reviewing their policy. But at 38 years of age, Lone still wouldn't qualify anywhere in the country.
And if I would have waited, I would have been dead by now.
A recent study has revealed that over the last 3 decades, there has been a 12.5% increase in breast cancer cases for women in their 30s. Though the doctor behind that research study still believes that the data doesn't support women under 40 without symptoms or a family history of breast cancer receiving a mammogram. But she does believe it should be about personal choice.
We should not be denying women the opportunity to get a screening mammogram if they really choose to have that.
In Ontario, the Minister of Health's office say by lowering the age of self-referred mammograms from 50 to 40, they will connect an additional 305,000 Ontarians to important screening services, ensuring breast cancer is detected and treated sooner. Lone believes more must be done to help women such as herself under the age of 40.
I'm not advocating lying, but I'm advocating that healthcare system should look into my case.
Since speaking out, Lone says she's received hate-filled messages from individuals claiming she jumped the line to receive a mammogram and chastising her for lying. Her response, we must raise our voices to save our lives. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Toronto.
A California doctor charged in the overdose death of Matthew Perry has pleaded guilty to conspiring to distribute ketamine. Dr. Mark Chavez admitted that he obtained the surgical anesthetic with a fraudulent prescription. The 54-year-old is the 3rd person to admit guilt in the Canadian actor's death last year. Chavez could get up to 10 years in prison when he is sentenced in April. A warning tonight for concert fans hoping to score tickets to one of Canada's biggest shows. The Oasis Farewell Tour hits the stage in Toronto next summer. Tickets have not officially gone on sale, but that's not stopping resale sites from selling the dream. CTV's Judy Trin on The Reality.
Fans have been waiting 15 years for Oasis to reunite. Just 2 days ago, the band announced its North American tour. No tickets have been released in Canada, the US, or Mexico, but scalpers are already selling seats.
The whole game here is to try to dupe fans into buying tickets.
Sites such as StubHub, Vivid, and Game Time are selling speculative tickets. These IOU tickets are being offered at 2, 3, even 5 times the amount of the official price. Buying them is a gamble.
If they're not dealing with the issuer of the tickets, they should make the assumption that they will lose their money, and they will be lucky if they don't.
Spec tickets are rampant for big concerts and sporting events. World Cup tickets in Toronto for matches set in June 2026 are already being sold. Official ticket brokers are angry and calling on government regulators to crack down on the illegal practice and to put a cap on ticket resale prices.
And as long as that profit incentive is there, We're going to have the bots, we're going to have the speculative tickets, we're going to have the fraudulent tickets.
In Ontario, a cap preventing tickets from being resold at 50% above face value was considered in 2019, but it was scrapped by the incoming government of Doug Ford, which deemed it unenforceable. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. Coming up.
The cartels say you have to move, you have to move.
The human smugglers preying on migrants along the U.S.-Mexico border, plus a remarkable discovery beneath the ocean surface. Tonight, we bring you part 3 of our 5-part series on the perilous journey for migrants desperately trying to get into the United States. W5's Avery Haynes traveled the length of the border with Mexico and was repeatedly followed by cartel spies and made some startling discoveries along the way.
The infamous border wall separating Mexico from the United States begins here in Tijuana, not on land, but in the sea. Each of these metal posts create these powerful riptides which pull migrants out to sea. Scores have died in just a 60-meter stretch of ocean. The border stretches about 3,000 kilometers. The red line is where there's fencing or a wall, and the white where there's no barrier at all. Despite the height of this wall, we find evidence that migrants cross here into Arizona. And within minutes, I collect a treasure trove of discarded passports and ID cards. It's like the United Nations of identification here. People from all over the world, from Dominica, Nepal, Mauritania, and India. The list goes on. But it just doesn't make sense. How could anyone get over this mammoth wall? An Arizona Border Patrol agent pulls up and has some answers.
When the cartels say you have to move, you have to move. They're waiting, usually ship change, so they got the bollocks.
That's right, the human smugglers cut through metal, concrete, and rebar in minutes. Here's the evidence of where it's been successful and where it's been interrupted. And then the border agent tells me to walk down along the wall a little further. Listen closely to what he says.
Right now,
The gate is open, despite the massive effort to keep migrants out. It's wide open in this stretch for 2 months a year during monsoon season to stop the roads from being washed out by a buildup of rain.
People know this and come here to cross illegally. So you're patrolling all the time to see.
The border agent leaves, and as we're getting shots of the wide open gates, visitors.
Hola, soy Avery.
We tell them we're journalists and they take off. But soon after, another vehicle with more men.
Hola. No, está bien.
They want to know what we're doing here, and they're not friendly. The guy in the red shirt keeps spitting. They're asking about the camera and tell us to turn it off.
Turn it off, yeah.
They're Falcons, cartel lookouts. After trying to intimidate us for a while, they leave. We get visits from Falcons almost every time we stop along the border, including here on a little road across from El Paso, Texas.
It's kind of spooky here because it seems as though we're all alone, but we're not. Cars like this, as well as people walking by, are actually Falcons. They're the spies who are checking out what we're doing.
We decide to leave.
Do we need to move?
We have another one in the back, in front.
We've had now 3 cars come up. One at the front, one at the back, and one just parked down there.
Different cartels control every inch of the border wall. Migrants who sneak into the U.S. must pay them to cross. We want to know how much they charge and are being driven to a rare interview with a human smuggler.
And tomorrow we will bring you Avery's interview with that smuggler and details on the price migrants pay for a shot at freedom. Still ahead, a snapshot from the campaign trail in Saskatchewan. Election season is underway in Saskatchewan, with voters heading to the polls on October 28th. Longtime Premier Scott Moe is looking to form a fifth straight government, but he'll have to overcome a challenge from the NDP. Here's CTV's Alison Bamford.
The last time Saskatchewan voters went to the polls, COVID-19 dominated debate. 4 years later, there's a different ballot question.
Who will keep our economy strong and our future bright?
Scott Moe's Saskatchewan party is looking to form a fifth straight government.
I'm running to be your premier.
A new opponent with NDP leader Carla Beck, her first election in this role. The economy and affordability at the heart of several early campaign promises, along with plans to improve health care and education.
Saskatchewan is in last place in education, last place in health care.
The economy is how we make those investments.
One public policy professor calls it small politics. No one big issue is deciding the polls, at least not yet.
You're being bribed with your own money.
Saskatchewan has 7 political parties, but only 3 held seats when the government dissolved. Recent polling shows the NDP and Sask party neck and neck. Voters cast their ballots October 28th. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
After the break, the rare underwater find off the coast of Newfoundland. A rare discovery beneath the surface of the ocean is giving us a fascinating view of a coral garden home to all kinds of marine life. Here's CTV's Garrett Barry.
A colorful habitat for sponges, basket stars, and other types of underwater organisms, all hiding a mere 100 meters under the sea.
They've never really been described in the densities that we've captured here. And that's the really unique and wonderful thing about this discovery, is that we've not seen them make this complex habitat before.
The team on the Marine Institute project has charted about 10,000 square meters of this never-before-seen soft coral habitat, thanks to some underwater sonar, a camera made to explore the depths of the sea, and a bit of good luck.
It just so happened that I was in the right place at the right time with a camera that could go onto the mound, and we captured this wonderful habitat.
First finding a clue during regular monitoring.
You see a very sharp 2D image on the bottom, going really like this, looking interesting, and then you saw another one, and then a third one, right after each other.
Then, coming back earlier this year, on board the MV Polar Prince, a former Coast Guard icebreaker, now partially owned by the Muapakek First Nation.
We were bringing in the wire that the Bathycam is attached to, and wrapped around the wire was a Gorgonocephalus, which are one of these basket stars.
So now it's time for further study of this area, what species might make home there, and how it might contribute to the biodiversity off the northeast coast of Newfoundland.
It rivals anything that is seen in shallow water corals that people are much more familiar with, and leads to questions of how many species might be out there, how might they be interacting with other creatures that are in some of the images, some of the urchins and basket stars.
The team hopes to soon return to the area and take environmental DNA samples that could reveal just how many creatures are hiding in this garden. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
And that's a snapshot of this Wednesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night and Happy New Year to members of the Jewish community on the first night of Rosh Hashanah. See you tomorrow.